Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this session on broad-basing the stock market through digitalization. My name is Lakshmi Fernando. I'm currently the macroeconomist and co-head of research at Asia Securities. We've got a great panel lined up today, and let me just introduce the panel for you this afternoon. We've got Rajiv Bandaranaike, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the Colombo Stock Exchange. We've got Naresh Abeysekera, who is the founder, CEO of Securo, commission member, SEC, and chairman of the SEC and CSE Digitalization Committee. We've got Chandrakant Jayasinghe, who is the Chief Information Officer at the Colombo Stock Exchange, and Jayantha Fernando, who is chairman, LK Domain Registry, board of director, CSE, and director, ICTA. So a great vast knowledge that we have in this panel. And what we want to discuss at this panel is to explore how the stock market has used digitalization to widen its reach, what potential areas are out there, and what the next steps are for the CSE in terms of digitalization. And without further ado, I will start this panel discussion maybe with Naresh, who I will just give my first question across to. If you can very briefly say, why did the need for digitalization occur?
Thanks, Lakshmi. Sure. Firstly, I would like to thank FITIS for organizing this timely session. When we looked at the capital market, what we want to build was a next generation exchange. So when I say next generation exchanges, we wanted to make the capital raising to distribution very efficient and to make it very speedy. Because once you increase the speed of capital raising, what happens is immediately you drive innovation in the country, innovation and growth. So it's like access to knowledge and access to capital. You make access to knowledge and access to capital very efficient, you see a growth of a country coming in. So that's why even with internet penetration, you see countries growing fast. So the primary objective was that. So in phase one, what we did was, we brought in the account opening process. We made it very easy at a touch of a fingertip. So it was a challenging process. Interface had to be built to the Department of Registrar of Persons. It was done probably in about 3 months, and within 3 months we brought in more investor interaction, where we wanted to create, we wanted to bring all investor information in the palm of the investor's hand. So today we have research reports, publicly listed company content, then whether it's company videos, corporate videos, notifications, all market information, market data, everything today is in the palm of that individual's hand. The brokering houses, we wanted to fully automate it so that you get rid of all manual interactions, where they can also create a platform to interact with the investor much better. Exchange, all functions are looked at, and it was automated. And now what we're looking at is looking at the next phase of capital raising, where we have the IPOs, all foreign accounts to be online created, and an end-to-end seamless digital experience, which I'm sure Chandrakant also will talk about some of the next phases, where it's going to be a very interactive experience, which will reach out to every single person in the country that has basically a smartphone.
Right, and I think you brought on a very important aspect, which was to help that seamless process of the stockbrokers and the advisors. I think that is a key thing. Chandrakant, if I can bring you in and just ask, along with this digitalization process, what steps were taken to facilitate the fact that this seamless sort of effort was taken in terms of taking the next steps?
So as Mr. Naresh explained, our primary objective of the first phase of the digitalization was to create an end-to-end seamless experience to the investor, so that from his fingertips, anywhere in the country, he can get connected with the stock exchange. And in that process, as he briefly explained, our first objective was to create the app and the website together to have to be an information portal. So the app and the website contains, especially the app contains all the relevant information that an investor needs about the stock market and when he's going to invest, the charts, the data, the company information, the company articles, research papers, the news, the macroeconomic news. So all the information we have collated into one place so that it's one place where an investor will need all the information that is required to invest in the stock market. And on the next step, as Mr. Naresh explained, the account opening and the electronic account opening process. Actually, it's one of the kind which was done in Sri Lanka. Basically, it's a true eKYC process where an investor can anywhere, anytime can punch his information from his fingertips and then place a biometrics to digital signature on the documents. And we have connected, for the first time in the country, we connected with the Department of Registration of Persons for the online verification of the NIC details. And so it's a seamless process. An investor can, from his fingertips, enter the information and it will go to the opening accounts and to the broker house itself. So that was one of the great achievements, one of the seamless integration that we had done.
Rajiva, would you?
Yep.
Sorry,
Yep.
if I can just bring Rajiva in right now as well. In terms of the seamlessness, I think that is one of the key requirements that was needed. But from the CSC side, do you see how the progress has been since the launch of digitalization in September?
Yeah, Lakshya, now if you look at the numbers for the 6 months period from September to end of February, we have seen 12,200 new CDS accounts being opened purely through the mobile app. Now that's almost doubling the normal volumes that we have seen. So that works out to roughly about 100 accounts a day through the mobile app alone. Our usual volume was something like 60 to 70 accounts that we were averaging. So we have more than doubled through the introduction of the mobile app. And to add to what Naresh and Chandrakant said, it's about empowering the investor so that any investor from any part of the country, without the need to physically visit a stockbroker firm, that person can conduct all of his stock market transactions completely online. And that's the uniqueness about it. Another interesting fact is that when you look at all the accounts that have been opened, over 80% are below the age of 40. Now that's, I would think, a huge shift from the traditional over 50 kind of investor that we have been having.
Yeah.
So we have seen a newer, younger set of investors coming into the market. So these are all positive developments that we have seen as a result of this digitization initiative, so that on one hand, you can, the ease, the convenience that it has offered anybody from any part of the world. Earlier, you had to travel to either a bank or a stockbroker office and do the physical documentation. So it's much faster, seamless, easier, and no form filling too. So I think that is fueling a lot of interest.
Yeah.
And as both of Chandrakant and Naresh mentioned, all the information that you require is at your fingertips, be it financial statement, be it corporate disclosures, be it research, broker research, or any other connected company information, all of it is there. So you have everything in your fingertips to make a well-informed decision.
Absolutely, and I think at the end of the day, well-informed decisions is the key for the next step for the exchange. Given that we've got a legal expertise here as well, I would like to bring you in, Ranta, at this point and just talk about what the legal and regulatory background was for forming this entire process.
Yeah, thank you, Akshini, once again. I actually would like to join the rest of the panelists here to thank FITIS for organizing such a significant discussion around capital markets and its ecosystem and its evolution in the context of digitization. To answer your question, Lakshani, going into a bit of background to what Naresh, Rajiv, as well as Chandrakant mentioned, when the digitization initiative was looked at and when we were trying to work out the strategy for launch of the online client registration platform through the CSC app and the process around it. There have been many attempts in the past looking at how to get it done, but there were significant impediments mainly relating to firstly the client onboarding process and how it can be done digitally. So on that, the primary impediment from the stock exchange side was, given the fact that the CDS is based on a trustee concept, whether any process based on a trust ordinance or its concept around it can be done using the electronic transactions law. So for many years, the impediment, the legal impediment and the interpretation given to the trust and its definitions around CDS and customer onboarding was a barrier because the Electronic Transactions Act and its utilization was not brought into play and was an impediment. So what was done was there was a re-examination of the legal interpretation of how this process could fall into the framework of the Electronic Transactions Act, and thereafter to see which provisions can be utilized to enhance the effectiveness to map it to the digitization process. So that mapping exercise was done in a very short period due to the joint efforts of the SEC, CSC. Actually, it's I think perhaps the first time, Rajiv, I'm not too sure whether it's the first time or not, that there is a joint initiative where Securities and Exchange Commission, two commissioners together with two board directors from the stock exchange were jointly involved in leading initiative of this magnitude with clear focus timelines. So the legal timelines are very specific, and the outcome that really benefited this ecosystem was that thanks to the efforts of Rajiv and the team and Chandrakant and everybody in the board, and thanks to the support of the SEC, we managed to give an interpretation that the Electronic Transactions Act would be applicable to a digital onboarding of customers within the framework of the CDS without doing too much of an amendment to the existing legal framework. Right. So the Electronic Transactions Act, Lakshini, how it works is, it has an overriding set of fundamental legal principles that allows anything done manually to be done digitally, including the use and the acceptance of electronic signatures as legally being valid, as if though in a paper-based process. So this cut short the traditional onboarding that was mentioned by the previous speakers about having to visit an office to fill forms. Everything now could be done online because the Electronic Transactions Act number 19 of 2006, which was upgraded to an international standard by the amending act of Act number 25 of 2017, lays down the framework where even international customers could join the framework effectively and seamlessly. Finally, Lakshini, the point I want to mention is that client verification procedure was always traditionally done entirely physically, and then we had to get it verified from the ID card department. So the traditional rule under the registration of persons law and the regulations made under that act in 2017, approved by Parliament in August 2017, was to have a process where there would be a charge of 500 rupees per verification, etc. And it was a very cumbersome process. What we did was a quick fix. We brought in, actually we utilized a regulation made under the Electronic Transactions Act that digitally transformed the identity card department end and allowed them also to agree with the stakeholders a price formula that would be meaningful. So end result was that the regulation made under the Electronic Transactions Act that was gazetted on the 21st of March 2019 was brought into effect into this cycle to enable the digital verification of an identity, and we went one step further, activated a provision of Schedule C of that regulation and managed to convince the Commissioner General of DRP to agree on a price formula rather than charging 500 rupees per transaction, to do it at 25 rupees per verification, because he had the discretion under that Electronic Transactions Act regulations to do so. So this was perhaps the background, and I think I have spoken for too long. To sum up, the Electronic Transactions Act number 19 of 2006, I'm pleased to say, was effectively and meaningfully utilized for the digitization of a country, a vital sector, and I cite this as a important example for other sectors to follow, and of course, provided we have leadership of the nature of Naresh, Rajiva, and Chandrakant. In other sectors, we can take it to the
Absolutely.
to this sector.
And I mean, at the end of the day, that legal framework and the strength of the legal framework is what will take, sort of steps like this to the next era of things.
So this can be an example.
Absolutely. Naresh, if I can, I think it's clearly evident, especially with some of the statistics that Rajiva gave out, that this has been a success since its launch only in September of last year. The wider question now would be, what is next? How is this digitalization process going to be taken to the masses? Because if you look at, the rural community, you do have a much higher percentage there. Can you explain and just give us some views on what that procedure would be and what the next steps would be?
Yeah, definitely, Lakshmi. If you look at our overall digital strategy, it has always been mobile first and quadruple play. So I will explain what it means. So mobile first is, when it comes to even capital raising, information, there will be two pillars. You'll have the information pillar, what we all spoke of now, that's the app. Then you'll have the investing pillar. Will be all mobile first. And when I say quadruple play is, the investor can get his information through report form in the app, through video form, through voice form, which will be also launched. Even if it's a research report, you can have the voice content, right? And the third, by May, latest by May will come in through AI form. Right. So you're driving in the car, right? And you want to know, okay, what's the market update today? And while you're driving, you can connect to your portfolio, you can connect to your CDS account, and then it will give you an update of how your portfolio has performed, including we are looking at the digital onboarding, AI-based assistance. For what we realized was Sri Lankans are very bad at filling forms. Right, so if you go through the rejection rates, not putting your name right, or not taking the picture right, or something like that, right? So what we brought in is, we've used AI to automate that process, assist the person. So when I say quadruple play, all these four elements of visual and audible mechanisms together with AI will come in to basically disseminate this information with this research-based corporate information, even the press articles of companies to the investor. And also that will also at some point will be in multi-language form. So this mobile-first quadruple play strategy can reach out to, we have in Sri Lanka, probably the smartphone penetration is over 80 to 90%. Yeah. Right, it eventually be 100% on smartphones. So this entire audience is there. And we are educating. We have our own. We have created the app has its own education platform. Then there's a YouTube channel. SEC, CSE has their own YouTube education channels, where we are educating them, right, on equity. And as we know, most of the millionaires in the world hold all their assets in equity. So it's that entire process that we are looking at to reach out to the masses, connect with them, engage with them digitally to create that investor mentality in them through digital means, and which is what is working. And it's pure. You see, the entire platform was developed if you take traditional platforms like Uber to various things, they used growth hacking, right? So the entire ecosystem has been designed to growth hack the market basically. So and that's why you see the numbers coming in. So there are statistics on week that we review based which segment is on board, in which geographical location, is it from Jaffna, is it from Gampa, wherever. So that's overall the strategy. When it comes to investing, you'll have the smart wallet coming in. To the smart wallet, immediately you create the CDS account. With the CDS account, the wallet will create. You transfer money to the wallet, immediately start investing in multiple asset classes. So these are the two pillars that we'll be looking at, and Chandrakant will go into more specific details on some of their functionality.
Yes, I was actually going to target my next question to you, Chandrakant. If you can actually, I think that's a very interesting part which is very crucial for the next step. Can you give us a bit more detail on how AI will be used and what areas you all are looking at right now?
Yeah, so as Ms. Naresh said, the next steps we are trying to take them, how create different digital touch points like AI and also voice assistance, how we can assist the investor, a busy investor who is driving or on the go, how he can extract information about his portfolio, about how the trends of the market, how the market is performing, whether so already testings and developments are underway for those launches. Then again, in these initiatives, we actually used robotic process automations to the maximum extent, because digitization is all about connecting the ecosystem. And connecting the ecosystem means we have different systems to get connected. So we used to get a seamless experience done. So we use robotic process automations on a heavy basis to give the end investor a seamless experience, so that the internal processes are fully automated, and where the productivity and the accuracy is at a very high level.
That's great. Rajiva, can I just turn to you to see if there's anything in addition that you would want to?
Well, if I talk about the specific services, actually in terms of what both Naresh and Chandrakant mentioned. So right now, all secondary market transactions have been enabled. So you asked a question about what for the future. So what we are planning as a part of these developments is, one is a eIPO. So when there is a IPO, you can apply electronically, and your funds also will be blocked in your bank account and taken only at the time the shares are allotted. Right. So you have the benefit of keeping your funds until the last moment till the shares are allocated. Right. And that will be again fully digitalized. You don't have to fill any forms. Similar process for rights issues. Once again, all of the checks, etc., have been will be eliminated, and you can seamlessly apply for and subscribe for rights issues. Right. And so these are some of the immediate plans over the next few months. And I spoke about empowerment, that we will give greater independence and empowerment to CDS account holders, for example, to manage their accounts. For example, if you want to change your address, right now you need to write in a letter, send it to the broker, and all of that. So we are coming up with a system where it will be automated, where you can log in to your account and do the changes once you're authenticated. So you can change your bank account number, you can change your address. If you want to transfer your portfolio from one broker to another, you can do it yourself. Right. So I think it's all about greater empowerment to the investor to have control over all of his trading activity. So that's the future. So ultimately, this mobile app will serve much greater purpose than what it is today, to really enable an investor to do everything over the phone. And I think Naresh picked a very good point about different asset classes. Yeah. So as we introduce new asset classes, you will find that he can diversify his investment into different asset classes using the same platform.
Right. Actually, that was a very good point that Naresh, you brought up. Talking about asset classes, I think there is a lot of potential for the Sri Lankan market from where we are right now to where we can go. Can you just talk about any potential asset classes that will be available? I mean, not even in the short term, but even in the medium term.
Definitely, Lakshmi. Overall, what we're trying to do is, unleash the power of the CDS. You see, the CDS is the most powerful asset the stock exchange has, because if you look at it principally, majority of the wealth of people are in the CDS. There's trust. So bringing multiple, with its property, with its your vehicle, with its a commercial building, whatever, bringing that into the CDS right, and creating multiple products, right, around it, right, is what we are looking at. So when we products, we are looking at debt and equity both. Debt can be easily configurable. You use any character. It doesn't have to be the fundament. You don't have to go on the traditional functionalities of a debenture. You customize your product, right, technologically, like whether you want to pay interest quarterly, monthly, daily, any, and issue it. So now the platforms have been created to send that e-subscription, funds are blocked through the wallet, right? People subscribe and immediately it's the bank account, right? So overall, that's the mechanics of what we are looking at. But in the near short term, Rajiv will explain in details. We are looking at gold coming in to the market.
Actually, just to fill in, we're planning 4 products.
Okay.
In the next maybe medium term over the course of this year in 2021. One is the gold product that we are hoping to introduce. We are talking to banks right now and designing the product and then talking to the regulator for the necessary approvals, both the central bank as well as the SEC. The next one is the real estate investment trust, which was launched, and SEC has gazetted the relevant rules in that connection. We feel that given the low interest rate scenario and much of the investment going into real estate products, that there is a lot of potential for the capital market to come up with a real estate product, and we feel that REITs will make real estate more affordable to a larger segment of people. So that's a product that probably we see will have potential, and currently some of the taxation issues have to be gazetted and sorted out, but once it's done, I'm sure there are many developers who are already talking to us who are interested in launching a REITs and monetizing the assets. Then the third product is a OTC market. Naresh mentioned debt. So we are trying to set up a OTC market for repos. Already the rules have been done, and we are in discussion with the regulator to have it approved. And once it's done, so we will enable the OTC trading of repos. That will add some liquidity to the corporate debt market, and will throw away all of the high transaction costs, etc., to make it affordable and viable. Fourthly, stock borrowing and lending is another product that we are going to thinking of introducing, along with DVP, the delivery versus payments changes that we are bringing in. So stock borrowing and lending also will give an opportunity for both lenders and borrowers as well. Borrowers to cover a potentially short position, and for others who have dormant portfolios, it's a good opportunity to make some interest on top of the capital gains that you make. So those are the 4 products that we are right now working on.
Right. Interesting times ahead, clearly.
Lakshmi, just to add to what Rajiv said, I think methodology of how we work on a weekly basis is it's all KPI driven and execution driven. So whatever Rajiv told you now is not like timelines over 6 months,
right,
or 1 year. You see, we look at short deadlines, getting it executed. So these products will come into the market quite soon, I would say.
That's very encouraging to know. Jayanta, can I just bring you in on this? I mean, I think there's a lot of new initiatives and a lot of potential that we can see that these guys are working on quite hard to bring in. From a regulatory and policy perspective, what is allowed right now from a legal standpoint? All these products that were talked about and any long-term products that you would be discussing, how does the current framework fit in with what the plans are?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, even for the digitization process, what had to be done was, in addition to looking at mapping the Electronic Transactions Act and its regulations into that entire process cycle and bringing and giving liberal interpretations to the provisions of the Electronic Transactions Act, really enable the entire digitization process to happen. However, I have to mention that this was just the first phase. At the next phase, what is being looked at are the legal impediments, for example, for foreign clients to get on board through the digitization app, for example. At this moment in time, we have impediments in terms of how our exchange control laws, how our FIU rules and regulations relating to KYC should be performed. There are interpretation issues around that. So I am pleased to say that the joint committee of the SCC, CSC, Digitization Task Force has been looking at the regulatory impediments that need to be addressed and having tough time targets, as Naresh pointed out. We have been working with the central bank, FIU, and SCC to see how the regulatory framework can be flexed and interpreted in a manner so as to allow the next phase of this activity to reach, let's say, the global investing community. So that is what is currently being looked at. One important point I want to emphasize is that I did not mention this earlier. The Colombo Stock Exchange Regulatory Division has been working tirelessly. I need to acknowledge that team, the regulatory and compliance team, together with the SEC team, to amend the listing rules, the CDS rules, the stockbroker rules, and many other rules with quick fixes that got approved by SEC in next to no time, overnight, within short notice. That resulted in all these activities from happening and moving to the level of a positive development that can be now cited as an example for the other sectors, including for the legal sector that is always lagging behind. So I like to talk about this very passionately, and I'm engaged with this team very passionately purely because this is a standing example even for my own sector in the legal community to follow in the future. What I have to emphasize in that in going forward into phase 2 is that mandating client broker settlements, that is payment by buyers and payment to sellers electronically, to the famous DVP framework has been on the cards for many years, and I'm pleased to say that this is going to happen in phase 2. Rajiva and Chandrakant, supported by the SEC team, has been doing a lot of work diligently in this process. The regulatory impediments in that area is being looked at. For example, the Payment and Settlement Systems Act number 25 of 2005, that was accompanied by the Evidence Amendment Act number 29 of 2005, has to be looked at, and maybe certain regulations have to be brought in within that framework to make this realistically possible, and the legal gap analysis with regard to how this can be effectively done within the existing framework has already happened. So the Colombo Stock Exchange Board has consulted a top law firm in this connection, and we are looking at how to, on the one hand, interpret the existing rules in a more liberal manner to make this go forward without major rule changes, and on the other hand, to sum up, we are looking at the barriers in the regulatory landscape that need to be addressed, and the joint committee is working with the other regulatory agencies like central bank to ensure that the necessary changes are done through not changes that would go through parliament and take a lot of time, but quick fixes by bringing in regulations under the respective laws to enable some of these transactions in the near or the short or the medium term rather than doing it in the long term. So that is my long answer to a very short question that you posed. Thank you.
I think you quite rightly captured everything that I wanted to know. We're actually getting quite a lot of questions as well. So I think I may stop my own questions and take some of these. I think, Naresh, you touched on this earlier, but there's one question that's coming asking, what's the status of distributing dividends through online transfers?
Yeah, so basically, even that the rule changes were done, and we made it faster.
Yeah.
If you have a bank account, right, you get it within two market days, right? And if you don't have a bank account, then you get it
14 days.
in 14 days.
Right.
Right. So the rules also changed, amended to electronically facilitate anyone from in that whole process.
Right. And I think including some of the products that you mentioned, something that wasn't mentioned was short selling, which I think one of our audience does have a question on. Can anyone comment on if short selling will be allowed?
Yeah, so this is how it's going to work. There's not going to be short selling per se.
Yeah.
But once we introduce DVP, you can potentially sell something that you don't have, but you need to cover it by the end of the day. So you can't carry forward a short position, but you can potentially go short during the day to the extent that you sell something that is not in your account.
Yeah.
So to that extent, you can make use of a market situation where you see an opportunity. You can go in, sell it, but you need to ensure that you buy the stock back and square your position by end of the day. Otherwise, there are heavy penalties and brokers will be responsible for it.
Right.
So we have built in a lot of safeguards to ensure that it doesn't really get out of hand. But that's something that will come along with
Okay. And do you all have any potential timeline for when things like short selling may be through DVP, of course?
Yeah. DVP is planned by May.
By May, okay.
Yeah. Go live by May.
Okay, interesting. We've got a couple of questions on the corporate debt side and why corporate debt is not allowed to be traded. Can anyone comment on?
I think we are looking at that, and there are a few ducks that should be put in order before we get to that phase, Lakshmi. And I think primarily it's about the education process. Right, so we need to strengthen our education, the know-how, all of that. We need to do that. We started that for equity, and we are even running paid campaigns to educate people on equity. But eventually, I mean, that will come into the market.
Naresh, you quite rightly brought that in, because at the end of the day, all these processes can be done, the next steps can be done, but if that awareness is not there, that education is not there, I think that would be, one of the barriers at least to the next step. Is there anything that you all have planned in terms of building that awareness, especially out of the key towns?
Yeah, so what we've done is, this also comes as part of the Digitalization committee. We've jointly allocated money into a full campaign. The campaign cycles are like we would engage the advertising company on a 12-month contract.
Right.
So that, but we need to look at is this capital market advertising and marketing is not something Sri Lanka is familiar with.
Yes.
So there's a lot of, from a committee point of view and us point of view, there's a lot of hand-holding and engagement, whichever advertising party that we get to, for them also to get to know this process. But it will be a continuous campaign where we parallelly, apart from the other marketing that we do, parallelly continuous run the awareness to help, I mean basic stuff. Today you have the research reports in your fingertips, but nobody really takes the investment decision based on research, right? And then they get their fingers burnt, and then they come crying to either Rajiv or yes. So it's investment. I think Sri Lankans per se don't have an investor mindset to begin with, right? Because if you take another market, you have an investor mindset where you would not number one place your eggs in one basket. You would look at property, equity, whatever. So you need to create that investor mindset, right? And but the long and short of anyone who held the assets in equity has not. I mean, if you look at any market, you take the US, Hong Kong, Singapore, wherever, they again provided you invested right.
Yeah.
So it's that education process that we are quite focused on. Right, and while we are automating, building systems, building market infrastructure, we are also building the market infrastructure to engage and educate investors.
Can I add to that, Lakshmi?
Yes, please.
Yeah, just one point I want to also add to what Naresh said is, in the digitization process, one interesting aspect we noted midway through is this, for example, there was an announcement made to the license brokering community to ensure that all their customers, for example, have an email account
Yeah. Right.
and
Bank
their
account.
mobile
Bank
number, bank account registered with the systems to actually fully enable the digital ecosystem to happen. But the response was very slow. And it took a while, maybe a couple of paid advertisements and a series of announcements and a deadline that had to be imposed, saying that if you don't have that information, that account will not be allowed to trade.
Yeah.
So this really bothers me to the extent that although legal reforms and the digitization process can be enhanced to the next phase, we need to be mindful that the people out there should know the overall benefit of the digitization, and doing it to a community that can only understand English is not going to be sufficient. It has to reach all corners of our country in the 3 languages so that the rural will benefit from the digitization process. And that is currently the target of both the Stock Exchange Board, supported by the SEC, and the leadership of the SEC is committed to ensure that the rural outreach will happen, right?
Yeah.
Rajiv, I know that the CSC already does a lot of these roadshows, especially rural as well. Now that we are in the next phase, are there any further plans, say 3 to 5 key sort of areas that you all are looking at in terms of building that awareness?
Yeah, of course, and I think what Naresh spoke about is about improving financial literacy.
Yeah.
So all our seminars, our workshops, now webinars have been designed around improving the financial literacy of those who would like to aspire to invest in the stock market. So right throughout the year, actually we conduct these seminars, and notwithstanding COVID and all those challenges, we have continued with our investor education programs, and we are pushing through that. Now we are converted to webinars mostly, and the bulk of it is actually done in Sinhala and Tamil, and it's only the Colombo-based ones that are really done in English. So we have a series of well-developed training and investor education that is done on a sort of continuous basis.
Right.
And a lot of learning material is also now made available online so that they can access all of that information, supported by, of course, the broker research and the other information that is also available online. So I think if someone wants to learn about capital markets, I think all the material is out there in all the languages. And if you go to our website, for example, and even the SEC website, you will find that at any given time there are at least maybe 6 or 7 workshops that one can join and follow. So I think there is a fair bit of work being done in terms of improving the financial literacy and, of course, investor education.
Absolutely, and I think investor education at the end of the day is the center of taking things to the next stage. In terms of the short selling of DVP, I just want to bring Jayanta back into this, just to ask you, Jayanta, in terms of initiating DVP, what's the sort of regulatory background on it? I know it's relatively new. It will be relatively new to our market. Can you just talk about what the legal standpoint would be?
So payment to buyers and payment to sellers through this electronic process is, I think, been under discussion for a while. While the electronic transactions law facilitates the transactions per se, the payment cycle is governed through the regulatory framework governed by under the payment and settlement systems law.
Okay.
And under that legal framework, as I mentioned earlier, a series of regulations have already been formulated. And you have the end-to-end settlements and rules around it being developed within that regulatory landscape. What would happen in the next few weeks is that the joint committee and supported by the superb teams we have both at SEC and stock exchange side, the legal teams would look at those regulations and see what the gaps are, and we would be making appropriate recommendations to the central bank, which is at the forefront of managing the governance framework. But I must say that the SEC stock exchange, based on the rules, there may be certain rule amendments that will be done by the regulatory team, and those rules would ensure a greater legal certainty and what would happen if there is a default, whom they should complain to, and what remedial measures that would be provided. So that is basically something yet to come,
Right.
but we can say with confidence that that is within the correct timelines.
Understood. And I think that's a very good, it's very good to put that out and just, explain that entire legal framework of things, given that, it's a relatively new product that would come in. Chandrakant, I may just ask you this question that has come in from one of our audience. If the sort of personal details have been submitted to a certain stockbroker, but that has not sort of gone through the entire process, right now, is there a way where an individual can directly submit information without going through a broker?
No, it's not possible.
It's not possible at the moment. We have to go through the broker. But then once you submit the eKYC, we send an alert to the investor, the contact details of the brokers and the assigned individual from the brokers' offices and email addresses and the mobile numbers. So and also from the system side, there is automatic escalations happening to the broker level if there is any delay in the process of the application. Since the investor has the information about whom to contact, he can actually get in touch with the broker directly and ask about the status of the application.
Right, understood. I mean, at the end of the day, I guess this entire digitalization process would need some sort of back and forth to some extent, especially if the details are not correct. I would think that's the only way.
Yeah, that's right.
It wouldn't.
That would delay the process,
Understood. Right. Let me just ask one more question, Rajiva, from you. We've spoken about the different types of products that could come in. We're looking at a macroeconomic environment where interest rates look to be relatively low, so the demand for that would definitely continue going into the next couple of years. What are the next sort of 2 to 3 sort of key areas that the CSE is looking at in terms of, one, adding products, which we have already spoken about, but in addition to that, what are the other key priorities that you all are looking at?
I think one of the key priorities, as you asked, is about activating the primary market. I think we have now focused on completely revamping the listing process. I think we've worked with SEC over the last couple of months to completely redo the approval process. Earlier there was a dual approval process, and in consultation with the regulator, we have now redone the entirety of it, including amending the listing rules to enable a wider range of companies to come in. For example, tech companies.
Right.
So that the criteria is not purely based on profitability, but it's also based on cash flows and revenue-based criteria that will permit the typical IT company also to come in and get listed. So we're done a complete overhaul of the rules as well as the process, and I think we are seeing the primary market getting activity. We saw a 3.2 billion IPO. There are 3 more in the pipeline, and what we are thrilled about is after 2 years of launching the Empower Board, we have got the first SME company listing, and it's just been approved. Recently we had a public utility, the Ceylon Electricity Board, coming up with a listed debenture. So we've suddenly seen this activity in the primary market. That's what we like to see.
Absolutely.
So apart from the new products that are being worked on, apart from the digitization, I think third focus area is about how we can offer a greater and a wider choice of companies to equity investors. The fourth part of it, Lakshmi, will be the infrastructure development. We are upgrading our trading system, and I'm sure Chandrakant can better fill in with all that. So DVP is another big piece that we are doing with regard to improving the overall risk in the market, and enabling DVP will address that risk factor that was prevalent in the market. It's a big project, but from an investor's perspective, what we are really doing is shifting the date of delivery of the security. It looks a small thing, but there's a lot of work around it, and maybe Chandrakant can fill in with all the technology upgrades that we are doing, which a lot of people don't know and understand, but that's a massive investment and a project around it, probably.
Chandrakant, please do the testimony.
Yes, so it's an entire revamp of the entire system.
Right.
And so now we are almost at the final stages of the revamp and getting ready for the launch. And we have to get the entire ecosystem ready. So the stockbrokers systems has to get ready and upgraded. And so as the international data vendors, the data receivers has to get upgraded. Now we are in the process of the final stage of industry-wide mock runs that is happening, and I think, as Raju said, by end of May in that region, we should be able to launch everything goes correct.
Thank you for that. Let me just ask one question that's come from one of our audience. Why is the government securities market secondary trading limited to only the primary dealers? Will there be a unified board for trading at any point of time?
I think we can. That's something that we are.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we like to do that.
Yeah.
If we talk about the debt market, as Naresh quite rightly mentioned, we are trying to activate the corporate debt market. Right now, Lakshmi, there's a question asked whether there is any bar or prohibition. There is no bar. People can do secondary trading of corporate debt,
Right.
but I think the transaction costs are
It's very-
prohibitive.
yeah.
So that's why we're working with the regulator to place a limit on a transaction cost, make it affordable, and have it as a OTC product. On the government securities side, well, we need to work with central bank to have a unified platform. There was an initiative earlier, and we are actually having discussions with central bank again as to have a common CCP for all securities, all products, debt and equity both. So this has to be a collaborative effort between central bank and the exchange. We are ready with the platform,
Yes.
but there has to be a sort of joint effort to agree on a joint platform for trading of government securities. Right now, it's a OTC product with primary dealers.
Right. But on the regulatory front or legal front, is there anything that's stopping this?
I would think so. There are certain regulatory changes that may be necessary.
Right.
So basically, as I said, the board of the stock exchange and SEC Commission has examined the legal framework from time to time. What is to be noted is, of course, that central bank is duly represented in the SEC Commission, and we expect that the legal impediments will be addressed. But at this moment in time, the central bank has been extremely positive in their response to the minor changes that need to happen. Joining the CCP, they have committed, right? So I think we are in the right direction. Except that more awareness and commitment from the market participants has to be more proactive, I would say.
I think that is a common theme that has come across, isn't it? So as far as the awareness increases, I think all these products would definitely be more popular. Right, with just over 5 minutes left to conclude, can I just open up the panel for your conclusive remarks? Naresh, can I just start with you?
Yeah, I think to sum it all up, Lakshmi, both teams are working tirelessly. The SEC team and CSC team. Sometimes our meetings probably go on till about 3-4 hours also, continuously. And I think all this, we managed to do it amidst, you see, regulatory challenges, if you try to change, you see things, it takes a long time. So I think when it comes to innovation always has challenges. So what I want to do, I want to commend the two teams for making all this possible amidst the existing regulation, existing legal frameworks, and because from a technology point of view, you can develop technology, but Chandrakant's team has done a tremendous job in working overtime, because it's probably one of the largest and most complex digital transformation phase 1, which was executed in 3 months. So the team needs to be commended, and also I must say that Central Bank and the FIU has been very cooperative. Right, the director at FIU, Mr. Inoka Mohoti, has been very cooperative, accommodative, and we have jointly worked on solutions to get together with Jayanta's help to get the eKYC, which is a fundamental ingredient to make anything happen, because once that is there, you can get shared KYC, you can get the margin providers on board, various things. So Central Bank has been very, very helpful together the two teams.
That's great. Chandrakant, can I just ask you to give some conclusive remarks in terms of what your team is doing and what the next steps would be to take digitalization to the next level?
Yeah, so the team is, as second phase, as the panel mentioned, there are many initiatives are there, and the teams are working towards that. As Mr. Naresh said, it's a large exercise, because we need to get all the stakeholders of the stock exchange to get in line with the digitalization project. Apart from the investor front end, there are many digitalization projects have been launched to digitize the communications between the other stakeholders like brokers, the listed companies. We have digitized the announcements, we have automated everything on that, and the broker, the reportings, we have fully automated, and all portals has been given to them. So it's a larger picture. We are here with a larger picture, and so we're trying to digitize all the stakeholders, all the communications, so that the entire stock market we achieve our end goal.
And that's quite a large task there, definitely. Jayanta, can I just ask you?
So basically, it has been a lovely session, by the way, Lakshmi, and thanks for coordinating this so well. What I want to emphasize is that digital transformation is always a challenge. Digital transformation is all about multiple stakeholders working collaboratively together in a manner that the actions are coordinated in a seamless fashion to get the job done. It's always challenging. So you can have in a multi-stakeholder approach, challenges from the regulatory entities, challenges from the various participants in the ecosystem, and then the players who are involved, to even the participants who actually benefit from the system. So getting all these segments effectively coordinated in a collaborative mechanism is always a challenge. But this has been a truly transformation journey, which many of us really enjoyed being part of, thanks to the commitment from the regulatory and implementation teams from all sides that were involved night and day, committed beyond the normal office hours. And I thank the leadership of both the stock exchange and SEC for the commitment and the drive and the passion through which they got the work done. So going forward, it's a matter of having this coordinated approach continued, and rather than looking at roadblocks, impediments, regulatory impediments are always there. So for example, in the eKYC process, there were difficulties, but the challenges were overcome to make sure that we get the job done. So anything is possible, and I'm hoping that in the next phase, we will make this more effective, and the transformation journey will continue, so that the country ecosystem will benefit from better and more lucrative investments, so that the country economy will benefit and the people the country will benefit from the transformation.
Absolutely. Rajiv, very quickly in 1 minute, if you can tell us your...
Yeah, so I think from a stock exchange perspective, it's about innovation. Innovation in terms of technology, innovation in terms of new products, and that's our ethos and working on that. And one last comment, and I think if you look at the successes that we have achieved, I think it's largely due to the kind of collaborative effort that we are having with the SEC and the stockbroking community. And I think in my whatever 25 plus years, we have never seen this level of cooperation between the stakeholders, and I think it's working in our favor. So we probably look forward to a vibrant future.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for that very interesting and very entertaining discussion. And thank you very much, everyone, for logging in as well for our session.